Jack here, dealing with an issue I hope for y'all's sake nobody watching this has had to deal with, but if you have, or if you're currently dealing with it, hopefully this sheds some light on it. What we have here is flex duct. If you look closer, you'll note that it's been chewed through in a bunch of spots. Everybody's favorite furry little creature to have in the home, the rat. Hi, puppy. So, what do we do when we have rats in our ducts? First, we kill all the rats. That was unpleasant. But it's been weeks since any of my traps went off, and my poison blocks are being unchewed on. So we're going to work on the assumption that the rats are gone. The reason they're here in the first place was that little cute Dobie we just saw. That and two other big dogs live next door, and they feed them out in a dog pen. And rats love dog food. It's just life. All right, anyway, so this is the process. I've already done makeup of several of these, and I've already got most of the ductwork in downstairs, or not downstairs, in the crawl space. And it's a tight and ugly crawl to work in. So, but 5 years ago I did a complete renovation, so I've got nobody to blame but myself because I stuck flex duct in a crawl space, and I really should know better than that. But like I said, it's an ugly crawl space. So this is what I'm doing. I've made up my 6-inch snaplock pipes. I've taped a standoff every couple feet. They recommend closer, but you know, I'm kind of not as worried about the insulation here. I just simply want to keep something that, for cooling, the downstairs is as cooled as everything else, so you don't have as much condensation. And for heating, it will keep enough heat in so that we get a nice, good result at the registers. But tape in a standout. I'm using essentially concrete foam because I had a bunch of it laying around. Taping it to it, taping that to a section of this stuff. Ask me why I like the closed cell pipe. Anybody ever work with insulation? And I'm going to tape it up in a full circle here, there, and then I'm going to tape the seam. Okay, got the circles there, there, and there. I'm going to go ahead and tape up the joint. Main point of this, for those of you who haven't done any HVAC work, is to keep the outside warm air from touching the cold pipe, because what happens then is condensation. Condensation is not your friend. Now, got these made up. One little trick that I've learned, because it's really a pain in the ass to do it downstairs when you're in a tight crawl space and your joints won't go together. You see on the snap lock, the last little bit here is smooth. All the rest of it has been corrugated so that it'll fit neatly in another pipe, but that last little bit where the snap lock is not. So the best thing to do with that is get yourself a pair of these. If you're smart, you'll get a better pair. I'm not smart. Ugh. Ratcheting pair would be better that had a deeper there. Now, that would normally be enough, but I've had to fight enough of these that I also take the extra step of pinch crimping the very edge inwards so that there's a slight, you know, does it impair the airflow? Might be a question that somebody would ask, and I would say so minimally that it's worth the assistance that crimping it provides. Ruh-roh. Got to flatten that out. Okay, I'm prepping for the crawl. Here's what we got. I've got a box. It's got my general tools and stuff I'm going to need for this stuff. I've got a bunch of got a bunch of L's. Got the unfortunately I took this off. I got to put it back in while I'm measuring. Got a couple pieces of duct work. It's a pretty ugly crawl. This, by the way, if you're used to getting Tyvek suits, I find I can only take 1 or 2 crawls in a Tyvek suit before it's shredded up too much to use again. This is just a $10 Harbor Freight suit. Usually get 2 or 3 crawls out of each of them for what it's worth. Also Harbor Freight for my elbows, because this crawl is so tight I'm not on my knees much. I'm on my elbows and my toes. It's awesome. It's like $3. So nobody's favorite part of anything. That's right, the main entrance to the crawl space is under a deck. And I've got peaked up 6 mil up there. I'll have to flatten that out. But I figured you should at least see the crawl to get there. All right, I'm going to fight the first section of this thing up in here. I did what I think is relatively clever. Of course, see that? It's a sliding section of insulation for the next piece of pipe that's going in, which I haven't cut yet because I don't know the dimensions until I get this in and stuck into the boot. Whew. Might need more duct. Oh well. It's the way of it. Okay, first order of business here is to find out if we can get an L in here at the correct height for receiving from over there. I'm thinking probably no. I'll find out in a sec. Problem made not awesome by all the electrical wiring in the way.
So we have to have a standoff. I cut a thing just before coming down here that may or may not work. It's a connector for flex duct, and I decided to go ahead and do this preemptively just in case I needed more height here, and I think I'm going to be glad I did. I mean, yeah, that'll give me about an inch in. Okay, cool. So now I gotta get this all buttered up and in there and see what I can do about the next section. Woo! Ready to use another very handy device. Again, as it happens, Harbor Freight. Starting to sound like a Harbor Freight commercial. Told my wife I could set a cot up in Harbor Freight and live the rest of my days happy. Ah. When you're in a tight spot, it's really hard to get a good screw in. I'm going to work with two. I'm going to duct butter it from the inside. When I get to it, let's put this in. See what I'm working with. Might have to take it out and get a. Yep. It's tight. Let's see. Yep. I think I'm good to go. Get my angle right. Make it. I can make it under that. Might have to change it out a little bit. Sketch my measurement. And go cut my piece. All right, this is me praying I have a tape measure down here in my box of stuff. If I don't, whew, thank God. All right. Now, you can see, cutting from there to there. So I need to catch my measurement on that. I've got a bunch of pieces formed up. So let's see how close I am. Okay, it looks about 43, 42. Let's get a better gander at it. All right, let's just go from edge to edge. This is 41.5 edge to edge. So if I go let's make sure I get the right edge to right edge. So just 41. That edge. It's 40 3/4. Not dead centered, but I think I can make that work without too much English. This is a tight spot here. Woo-wee. Check. That's 41. So I'll cut it to 43. Give me an inch on each side to tie it in. All right, so I got this section in, and I'm running it forward. But before we go out of this, we got to do our duty. Whenever you use these things, they're wonderful, you know, for hard duct if you've got to use them. And they're actually good for flex duct too if you got to make a bend, because you don't want to bend the flex. You don't want to have that be your bend, because it creates a lot of friction in the airflow, and you don't want that. You know, you want it this nice round smooth thing. So even with flex ducts, these are good. But when you use them, you got to duct butter all these joints, otherwise you're going to be leaking like a sieve. So, not exciting, not fun, not interesting, but very necessary. I like to just go back and forth on them and do the whole thing, because that way you get the joint really pulled up. And in addition to that, it stops it from moving. So these things will shift if they don't have something rigidifying them. That's all we're trying to do here. Stop the leak and rigidify the joint. Got some newly made up pieces. I'm going to finish this last run, I hope. Not on this one. I got one more piece to cut to bridge these two, but let's hope that this behaves itself and goes in the way it should. Last little bit coming under the beam. cut it, should fit. We'll put it on, butter it up. Put lots of screws in it. I hope to call it a day. And I don't know how far that dropped, but that's some folded over stuff. We're gonna finish up the insulation, and that's it for this project, the worst part of it anyway. Got some trim out up top.